He's
What
our
a-
director.
Yep.
What a warning.
All right, you guys are good to go.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Thursday, April 23rd, electronic meeting of the Bluffton Town Council. It's a special meeting. If we can call this meeting to order, everyone is accounted for on council. We will start with the Pledge of Allegiance and then the invocation. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America
and to the
to the
republic
republic for which it stands,
one
one
nation
nation,
under God,
indivisible.
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you all. Next, we'll move to the invocation, and I have that. So whomever would like to pray, please join me. Dear Lord, heal those who are sick with this virus. May they regain strength and health through quality health care. Help us heal from our fear, which prevents nations from working together and neighbors from helping one another. Heal us from our pride, which can make us claim invulnerability to a disease that knows no borders. Be with those who have died from the virus. Be with the families of those who are sick or have died. Be with the doctors, nurses, researchers, and all medical professionals who seek to heal and help those affected and who put themselves at risk in the process. Be with the leaders of all nations, especially this town. Give us the foresight to act with charity and true concern for the well-being of the people we are meant to serve. Give us the wisdom to invest in long-term solutions that will help prepare for or prevent future outbreaks. May we know your peace as we work together to achieve it on earth. In this we pray, amen.
Amen.
Next, adoption of the agenda. Is there any change to the small agenda? If not, is there a motion to accept?
So moved.
Your second?
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor, say by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Are there any no's? I know I didn't do a roll call, but okay, that's unanimous. The agenda has been adopted. And the formal item that we have before us today is the consideration of a resolution to establish and affirm its full support of the Town of Bluffton Small Business Economic Resiliency Plan to mitigate the COVID-19 global pandemic financial impact to small business. And Mark, you have it.
Thank you, Mayor Salka, Mayor and Council. And I'm very pleased to present today the Small Business Economic Resiliency Plan for the Town of Bluffton. As we started to think through this several weeks ago, we've really set up an overarching goal. And that overarching goal is to be predictive and proactive in our decision-making to preserve two things: business continuity and community resiliency. So working with Mike Levine, our Don Ryan CEO, and Chris Forster, our finance director, amongst a whole bunch of other amazing folks and great business thinkers, started to realize there are a number of key issues to think through and steps we can put in place to not only react to business disruption as we're seeing it, but really to reshape business and plan for recovery. There's some basic priorities and basic principles that we're trying to achieve today as we present this plan for your consideration. One is prioritizing people safety and engagement. Also reshaping business strategy, helping businesses figure out how to communicate differently with stakeholders. How can they maximize government policies and programs? And then ultimately, like I said, to build resiliency and prepare. We keep hearing the term a new normal. I was trying to not say that for a while, but it's definitely a term that I believe will stick. And so the overarching goal of this program is to help with that. So our plan presented is an attempt, and what I feel strongly is to achieve, that goal. So I'm going to share my screen with you all. Bear with me for a quick sec. And so what you have in front of you is a small business economic resiliency plan. We all realize that in March 13th, the governor of South Carolina issued his executive order and declared a state of emergency. And Mayor Salka, it feels like some time ago, but it was a little more than a month ago that you declared for the town of Bluffton on March 16th, and a proclamation declaring a state of emergency throughout the town. The extent of the long-term impact on small businesses is still very uncertain as we look into our budget and try to make realistic data-based projections on our revenues. That's still very new to us and somewhat unknown in the future. We know that the federal government has put several stimulus programs and opportunities in place through the CARES Act, through the SBA, and through different payroll protection plans. And I've tried to capture as much as I can of that information in your staff report here. But what isn't happening is that small business at a local level isn't necessarily at the forefront of a lot of the programs in terms of technical assistance. And so what we've done is we've reached out to a lot of different partners and folks that we have really strong relationships with. And so some of those folks that we've discussed with is the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation, our chambers of commerce, other municipal managers, the county administrator, and other folks. We've put a plan in place, and I'm happy to propose it to you today. The text below, and I'll scroll through it, it really outlines a framework of a plan that would be put in place and that would be led by our Don Ryan Center for Innovation to execute and implement. And so here's what we've already done. We have sent a survey to every single one of our business license holders. So we've sent them a letter with a survey link. The survey was prepared in part by the Don Ryan Center, but really by John O'Toole and his team at the Beaufort County Economic Development Corporation. We are trying to provide support, but also trying to hear what our local businesses are indicating through this survey. That survey is not back yet. Those results will be shared with all of you, including our Don Ryan Center Board of Directors. I'm also proposing today that we pivot the Don Ryan Center slightly so that they become primarily a small business concierge. We know that they're in the business of business incubation. We currently have 3 companies in the center. Our hub's ready to open. I understand they have several more potential innovators, companies in the pipeline. So in addition to that, we also know that they're in the business of true business retention and expansion at our Commerce Park. And so adding to those 2 different really sides of the equation, I'm asking that the Don Ryan Center be added to be a true business concierge. I call it a walk-in clinic for assistance. And so how can we use our resources and partnerships to serve our business community? And so we've put together a small business resource guide, of which is attached to this packet today. That resource guide provides a lot of information, and I'll go through that in a second. But what we're asking is that the Don Ryan Center truly establish partnerships through an MOU with Beaufort County EDC, University of South Carolina, their Small Business Development Center, the Greater Bluffton Chamber, the Hilton Head Bluffton Chamber, the Beaufort County, potentially Beaufort County Black Chamber, and any others. It's really an all hands on deck, and we need as many partners and as many sponsors and as many supporters as we can to be there if a small business needs assistance. What would they do? They would help folks navigate through all of the different opportunities and options that they have in front of them through the federal assistance, potentially South Carolina assistance. Right before we hopped on this call, I was reading a quick email from Chris Forster that let me know that there is a stimulus program proposed that would potentially funnel down to the local level. I'm not sure if it would affect us or perhaps even at a county level. We know that there's a lot of regional nonprofit funds and programs put in place. We know that there's nonprofits as well as private funds in place. So how can we leverage those funds? How can we leverage those folks to help? And then as well, municipal assistance. We also propose that the Don Ryan Center be a referral and advisement program. So as I try to explain it, our technical assistance is providing technical assistance. How can we connect the dots for folks? How can we help them structure and assist them with finding appropriate programs and financial support? Our Don Ryan Center, several of our Don Ryan Center board of directors got together with Mike Levine and have proposed as part of this plan to you as a town council, complementary DRCI resources. And so what would typically be a cost and a service attached, they're recommending that they waive membership for Don Ryan Center for 12 months and that they waive the cost of the walk-in hub portion, not so much the waiving the cost of true incubation, but the cost of the walk-in clinic, as I would call it. And so waive the cost of rent for the hub for 12 months. Please know the hub's ready. Furniture is being delivered this week. We received our CO, our certificate of occupancy on the hub last week. And unless and until we can move in, we can still help these businesses electronically and digitally and via phone, the old-fashioned way. We're also proposing that we work with Terry Finger, our town attorney, to set up a group of local attorneys to provide perhaps a small network for pro bono legal assistance. We're not trying to reinvent ourselves and become folks' attorneys, but we would like to be able to allow or provide some Q&A with well-known or very knowledgeable attorneys. And so we're also proposing in this program we set that small network up. And then just as importantly, the program would include a new growth program. And so how do they manage their cash flow? How do they address business deficiencies? How do they manage stimulus funds if they receive them? And just as important, how do you sustain and grow during economic uncertainty? And I often use an explanation of, we all know a local business that has traditionally been a restaurant, and during a hard time, they have sought advice, looked for money, set up private funds to help their employees and then some. But then they also have turned their restaurant into a curbside delivery, but also a grocery store. And so they are staying in business and continuing to help the community. And I think we're seeing that throughout the community at all different levels. How do we help those companies perhaps even think of a new business model in what we keep calling the new norm? And that the Don Ryan Center also become a small business advocate. And so how do we help them with other local utilities? We know that Palmetto Electric has some strong programs and policies in place. But as of right now, I would say that potentially a lot of these businesses may or may not be that familiar if Beaufort Jasper or Dominion or other utilities have similar programs in place. And so how can we make ourselves knowledgeable and then help those businesses with those other agencies? We've also proposed, and you, council, have adopted the deferral of tax payment. So above and beyond everything I mentioned above, what about tax relief? And so the proposal is to defer license and tax deadlines to reduce financial burdens today. And so those deferrals of February, March, and April local H-tax and local A-tax have been deferred until June 14th. And currently the business license renewal deadline is deferred until April 30th. And those are allowed under the governor's orders and mandates, and based upon the declaration of emergency by Mayor Salka. What we're also proposing is that we extend that deadline of April 30th out till August 7th. In order to allow that to happen, we would have to amend the business license ordinance. Of course, it would take 2 readings. We could schedule special meetings or simply schedule this for any 2 months prior to the August meeting, knowing that we would extend it. That's the very last date that we're comfortable with based upon several factors, one of which is our financial audit preparation, and the other of which is simply a cash flow issue. We also know that there's going to be different grants and perhaps stimulus opportunities in the future, whether it's through the Department of Commerce, CDBG, or any other similar state programs with federal pass-through dollars. And so we're going to constantly monitor those programs and apply for anything appropriate that would fit within this framework once you adopt it. And so with that being said, I know it's in your packet. Kim's provided the link online. You have the COVID-19 handbook put together by John O'Toole, put together by the Don Ryan Center. And it really starts to attempt to provide a one-stop contact. This changes weekly. And so the goal and the task to the Don Ryan Center would be to keep this as updated as they possibly can. And so to become that one-stop contact, we need to familiarize ourselves and know about everything that's going on at a municipal level. I've talked with the managers and administrator, and I know that they're thinking through economic assistance, really business assistance in their communities as well. What we don't have on here, and it's an oversight on my end, is Hardyville. And so I apologize, but I'll definitely add Hardyville because I do know that they are just as focused on this as the rest of us. We know that there are a lot of private resources. We have those listed. We know that there are regional nonprofits, the United Way of the Low Country Relief Fund, the Community Foundation, the 1SC Fund. We also know that the state resources are starting to build. And so I think that this good resource guide is only as good as the folks reading it. I would expect and know our Don Ryan Center and all those partners I listed up top would become experts in the sense of knowing where to send folks. So whether it's the economic loans, the CARES Act, as their money runs out, perhaps new things will show up at a state level, the payroll protection and things like that. So you can see the resource guide. What we've also done is put together a peer review. And so I always like to figure out what everyone around the country is doing. There are some limitations to what we can and cannot do in the state of South Carolina, perhaps differently than Seattle, Washington, or Raleigh, North Carolina. So as you read through the peer review, know that we've tried to take the best of the best as it would apply and be valid in Bluffton and put a program together. We've also thought through some of our own initiatives, but that's for your review. You can see that there's some other folks that have done a lot of things, and this list could go on and on and on, but we took the ones that are somewhat relevant in South Carolina. You have in front of you a resolution that simply prepares a lot of background information. And I ask you today for consideration to establish and support our small business economic resiliency plan. And thank you.
Great. You know what, is everyone taking notes? Do they have questions? We can kind of roll call through. I don't see everyone on the screen, so that's kind of tough. So I'll start with Larry since he's the first person I see. Do you have any questions right now, Larry?
Yeah, just a couple. I not that I'm basing my opinion on it. With our partners, which are, Jasper County, Beaufort County, are we offering assistance to all whether they're in the town of Bluffton or business that's not within the town of Bluffton, say, if they come to us, are we open for them as far as the assistant program goes, or is it strictly for, the businesses within our town? It's just
yeah. Well, one, I would ask council their preference. My recommendation would be that we have to absolutely prioritize Bluffton businesses. We have to prioritize that. That's where our tax dollars going into the Don Ryan Center to pay for the Don Ryan Center staff and overhead come from, I would strongly encourage and suggest, if council thought differently at least, that we support Bluffton businesses. That doesn't mean that we can't quickly give some guidance and direction to some folks that walk in. We're not going to say no thank you, but I think our time, energy, and dollars for payroll and whatnot need to be spent in Bluffton.
Okay, that's fine with me. It was just something I wanted clarified.
Anything else, Larry?
Not right now.
Okay,
Thanks.
well, let's go. This is our only item. So if you have other questions, we'll just run through another time just to make sure someone doesn't come up with one. Dan, you're next on my list. Any questions or thoughts?
Mark, the survey, when do you hope to get the results of that?
I would love to have them today. It all depends on how the businesses respond. Chris, remind me if you put a timeline in there, a suggested timeline.
There is no timeline. We can request from the Economic Development Corporation results at any time. So we can get preliminary results whenever we request them.
Right. And so the goal is to hear back from as many people that respond. And I do think that in some time, perhaps 30 days from now, we resend another letter with a second survey. And so I think that the survey is as much as we can achieve on the front end, and we'll be promoting it through our social media and to our businesses. But I think that those survey results need to evolve over time. So we're going to keep surveying.
Two other questions. On the legal assistance, I'm assuming that's advisory, gratis. They're not having to pay for that service.
No, it indicates in the program outline pro bono. So yes.
Okay. And then the payment schedule that we've deflected back, a few months. Are we allowed by law to have a payment plan if anybody needs something like that?
What do you mean a payment plan in that sense?
Well, I mean, what I'm saying is, a lot of the businesses are going to obviously be struggling.
Okay.
I don't know what some of these funds look like, the bills that they get hit with. They're going to be stacked up a few months later. And, so they say, I want to comply, but I'm not able to right this moment.
Well, that's the intent of deferring it till August. And so it would defer the payment and any penalties until August. Post August, that what's not built in the ordinance right now is any waiver of late fees or anything. We can explore that if that's the will of council in terms of payment plans and waiver of penalty beyond the deadline. Chris, I know you were trying to say something as well.
Yes, we can request the authority to offer payment plans. We've done it in very limited cases in the past for businesses who have gotten behind. But it's definitely something we can explore with your approval.
Thank you, Mayor.
I knew I was on mute. Fred, you're up unless you want me to come back to you. Do you have any questions now or later?
Mark, I think you kind of want to be open-ended on that question that Larry asked, but I'm suggesting as my one opinion that we mainly focus on Bluffton business and our local business. I don't think we can be. I don't think we should offer that. Bluffton taxpayers shouldn't be helping someone from Savannah or from Jasper or from Hampton. So let's make sure we take care of home first.
I understand. I'm intended to say the same thing.
Okay.
Anything else, Fred?
No, thank you.
Bridget, you're on mute. You're up.
No, no questions. I would just like to say that I think the third component listed in the resiliency on the agenda here is important, as a lot of businesses who don't have the who don't have the capability to be resourceful and kind of reinvent themselves would need support of being able to have their utility companies or even landlords be willing or open to giving them some type of deferral or extension at this time. And that might be a great reprieve to them as they're trying to, navigate through what's going on with the pandemic. So I'm glad to see that as something that we're also in support of.
Good. Let me ask a couple questions and I'll run back through everyone again because maybe some questions caused others. And I'm kind of looking on Facebook too, and I really appreciate Lindsay or Debbie responding to some of these questions. But several of our businesses, and I can recognize them by their names, asked who received the surveys. So I would ask that we extend it after this meeting, especially. We did just post on SurveyMonkey the link on our comments on this meeting, and I would ask that we get that out on social media. I just pulled it up. It's a simple survey. I think it asks the right questions. So when he comes back, can we get really kind of an idea of who did the survey? And I don't know if he can do that. The other thing, Mark, you said about extending the deadline, but we passed, and maybe I'm reading it wrong, didn't we passed last month that we were already extending it to June 1st, not April 30th?
You're
Yeah.
referring,
Well, Chris?
yeah, are you referring to business licenses?
Yeah.
Well, yeah, business license, hospitality payments and accommodation, and waiving late fees. We
Right.
passed last month, but then on our, and maybe it's just outdated. I thought Mark's presentation was talking about to April 30th. So I just didn't want to confuse people who were listening or confuse me.
So the original deadline for business licenses is April 30th. The ordinance you passed extends that deadline until June 14th. In the business plan, we propose considering extending that even further to August.
It's just, I think it's outward. I think it's just a little out. Well, there it is. Okay. Okay.
I believe I might have captured that in the staff report because there were some different dates, but okay.
Okay, I'm sorry. And then just as an FYI to y'all, Beaufort yesterday, Mayor Kaiserling told me they pushed theirs to June 30th. So I think we're in line within a week or two of that. So that's all my questions. I think really good. I think we got to get the survey out a little bit more now that people are hearing about it. And we
Okay.
have quite a few people on Facebook now looking and asking questions. So what I would recommend to them is get in touch with the Economic Development Corporation and log on to their social medias and everything as well as ours. And if we can get that out, it'd be great.
Absolutely. And if I could just add one thing, the letters went out how many days ago, Chris?
They went out the day after council, so I think that was last Wednesday.
So we've sent letters to more than 3,400 businesses and to the addresses that we have on record for those businesses. We've sent them letters with some information, and in the letter, it provides the link to the survey. So they should all be receiving that shortly. But Mayor, to your point, we'll ask Lindsay to do a specific social media priority of that survey. So.
Do we have email addresses on all our businesses, Chris?
We do have emails for most businesses. We've been working to try and get a way to, it's a lot of businesses, it's about 3,400. So we're working on a way to get that into a mass email distribution out of the system that we use, which is Energov. So we've had some difficulty getting that data out, but we are trying to do that and make this a lot easier.
Well, I'm going to run through one more time. I'll start with Larry. Anything after you've heard everyone else?
Not pertaining to this, I would like to say something on a different topic, if I may.
Can we wait till we get to communication from mayor and council for that?
Sure.
Because that's on our agenda. So if
That's
anyone
fine.
has something other than this, we're going to go through for that, if you don't mind.
No, that's fine. Thank you.
Larry, that is Larry. Dan, anything else on this particular agenda item?
Yes. Mark, are the other municipalities doing a survey as well?
I'm not sure. I'm not sure, sir.
Yeah, the reason I asked the question is, and you've got such a good list of people here and, you know, the chambers and everybody, but somebody along the way will stumble across something, I'm assuming, that could end up being a best practice. Maybe something where they're having some success on navigating this minefield for some of the local businesses, especially the restaurant industry. But so anyway, I guess my point, the reason for asking the question was to capitalize on anything good that our local municipalities that may be discovering that we haven't discovered it, you know, down the road.
Well, I could answer that, and so what I've done is definitely very regularly connect with Steve and Van and Bill and Ashley and Mike Simbor out of Hardyville, of course, to get those notes. And so as I put this in draft form and emailed it out to all of you in the community, I also shared it with all the other municipal managers and county administrators. So we are back and forth sharing notes, right? That's how I'm aware of what Hilton Head's doing with some of their CDBG funds and some other best practices that we're all trying to figure out. It's definitely a team sport, and I assure you and promise council that we'll stay connected. I do think that once this program's in place and we promote it, we're going to hear a lot more from folks too.
Thank you.
And Mark, I kind of agree with Dan on that. And I'm looking at the document, your initial, your report, maybe somewhere in there on your task force, maybe there is a task force for ideas of our young professionals and our, you know, clothing stores and nail salons and, you know, people are thinking, let's just get all their ideas beyond government. So, Fred, anything else from what you've heard?
No, I'm good with what I've heard so far, and I applaud the Mark and Chris for the work you guys did to try to get us to this point. It looks very promising, and is what I call proactive thinking, and we got our business community in our focus, and I think that's a good thing to do at this time. Thank you.
Right. Bridget, anything else?
No, I don't have anything else.
Okay. Mark, on the surveys again, how did EDC do that? Through email, internet, social media? They weren't mailed out, but they were mailed out as well. Help me with that, or Chris.
The EDC sent out an email to businesses they had emails for.
Okay.
And then we included that link in the letter we sent to businesses regarding the extension of the deadlines.
Good. It was just a question, and we'll respond, but they're online. So the link, if you are not part of the EDC, I'd find a way to get your information to them. And now you have the link, so it's not too late to do the survey.
Correct.
So nothing was mailed. We're not that far back in the world. We're a little more progressive on links. So that can answer that business owner's question. Okay. Nothing else. I can read the motion on this. Is there a motion to approve the resolution to establish and affirm its full support of the Town of Bluffton Small Business Economic Resiliency Plan to mitigate the financial impact of small businesses of COVID-19 global pandemic?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And I'll just do a roll call. All in favor, and I'll start with myself. Aye. Larry?
Aye.
Dan?
Aye.
Fred?
Aye.
Bridget?
Aye.
That's unanimous. Great job, Mark. Awesome job. A lot of hard work into it. Next, we have communications from mayor and council. So anything you've been thinking of, questions? You know, we have a May meeting just around the corner. I do expect it to be like this. But But I will just, I can start it like I did before. I'll start with Larry. You said you did have something for the group, so I'll start with you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I'd just like to take this opportunity to suggest the opening of the floating dock by the boat ramp. I see where, in my opinion, it's a public safety with when we built the ramp, when put the dock there, there were kind of like two of one complements the other. With our area and the size of boats growing, it's really difficult for people to put their boat in, then crawl across the bow into the oyster shells or onto the concrete, and then go park their trucks or whatever they have to do, and then come back to the same thing, you know, as they return from fishing or whatever they may be doing. You know, with the amount of children and families and even elderly people climbing, the days of climbing across the bow of a 20-something foot boat and jumping out and then climbing back on, or, you know, it's dangerous. I've watched it for years, and in my opinion, it's something that I wish you guys would reconsider. It's just my opinion. And that's all I have right now. I could go on about it, but that's just where I'm at with it. We'll see what everybody else says.
I'd like to chime in on that.
Sure.
First of all, I don't think it's the town's position to close the dock. It's a county dock. I know we partner with the county, but we opened the dock because it was a county decision. It wasn't the town decision. And so, and I also agree with Larry that it is a safety issue. I go down there frequently myself, and I like to take that fear of someone getting hurt trying to crawl across the bow, like Larry said, or falling in the water, and especially a child. At this point, people are looking for, now that I guess the cat is out the bag, that they can use it. We got to make sure that it's safe to use and it's convenient to use.
Anyone else? I'll make a comment. I'm not for it, but Mark's got the final say. I think before that dock was built, I put my children in a boat with a ramp, and it was going in the mud in oyster shells. And I just don't agree that we are headed in a place where everything's safe. And I'm not for it, but I'm only 1/5 of a vote, and Mark actually has to say at the end of it. So y'all speak your mind on it, and I think it's good we get it out and how we feel, and Mark can decide.
Can I ask you a question?
You may.
Okay, you say, the part that you feel like is not safe, and trust me, I don't agree with the dock being open, period. But it is, and it wasn't our decision. So your fear of it not being safe, can you share that with me so I can understand your position?
Yeah, I mean, the ramp was open. The dock, as far as I know, the dock is closed because the town hasn't opened the dock. Now, the Calhoun Street dock is closed because we're getting ready to work on it. The Oyster Factory ramp was opened by the county. Mark closed the dock with the parks and the bathrooms. I think Larry wants the dock to be open along with the ramp. I just think if people don't feel safe, don't go out on the water. I mean, I have friends on the river that have seen the most disgusting things over the weekend, and where the ramps are being enforced by DNR, because I am told that they're looking at everyone 2 or less and they're monitoring it, but it doesn't stop the parties and the boats that are at the private docks. And I've had people that live on the river tell me they've seen 15 people on a boat. The sandbars are packed. I'm sorry, but the governor, no one's listening, and I don't know. It's just one thing. I just I believe in it. I believe the less boats on that river, that's where I feel. I mean, at the end of the day, I'm not upset if I get overruled, but it's just my personal thought. We're not putting our boat out. I'm not going to go on a sandbar. I'm not going to cause law enforcement added stress to stop all these people. And I think they have enough on their hands. So that's just my thought. I have a lot of people that don't agree with me.
Are we gonna chime back in as we want
Yeah, I
to,
mean,
or
I
do you
think,
want to do that?
no, I think this, we can just kind of, if you hear someone start talking, stop. You're good.
So to understand what you're saying, Lisa, my major goal is to make things as safe and as accommodating as possible. The the boats full of people and out there, that's totally just the Beaufort County and DNR and Coast Guard, we have state agencies and regulators to enforce that. I don't think we can. If the dock being closed is only to deter people from using or going in the river, that's different than it being closed to help prevent the spread of coronavirus, in my opinion. If that's what we're doing is trying to keep people from going in the river, then that's a whole different topic. The safety of, we could put a sign up, only people entering and exiting boats on the dock if we want to eliminate the handful of local people who may go down there and throw a fishing line, or to prevent groups, as you were speaking. I'm all for that. It's is the only one in Beaufort County. Every other boat ramp and every other boat ramp has a dock, just like All Joy and the rest of them. And those docks are, they're there as a courtesy dock to make it safer and easier for people that are going in the river, whether they're, commercial crabbers or fishermen or just mom and dad want to take their kids on a boat ride. So that's, where I am on it. I hate to be I want to be the most cautious, along with everyone else's wishes, but I don't see the floating dock being blocked by really having anything to do with the coronavirus,
Well,
which is our emergency right now.
but Fred, Mary, think about the boats. Now they're not even social distancing. You have 2 or 3 boats at the dock, as opposed to what we all used to do. A pre-dock, you floated in the water. The mom or dad put their ramp in, you put your boat in, you pulled it up, you put your kids in the truck. We didn't have the dock. We have only had the dock 5 years, if that. And so now we're going to have multiple boats tied up on that dock, waiting for the boat, the trailer to come in. And we're just different than everyone else. I didn't want to open the boat. I was not favor for the boat ramps opening. I think the mess that's going on that river right now is disgusting. And it's the loophole finders and the people who don't follow rules. And it's hurting all of us who follow rules. And
right. And I totally agree with that. But you have to imagine too, if you're not tied up at the dock and a thunderstorm comes, then you're going to have 20 boats side by side on the oyster shells or blocking the ramp, and then, they've got to go, they're going to go somewhere. It's not like, if it were within our power and everyone voted to say, okay, well, we're just going to close the whole thing. And, that's one thing, but half open, half closed is not, in my opinion, and the people that I see and what I see down there, I'm there more than anybody else and have been for a long time. It's it's not what the people that are going in the river anyway. They're going to go, and there's a lot of good ones too. It's not everybody that's 10 people in a boat and doing what they're not supposed to. There's as many good people as there are bad, law-abiding people.
I don't agree, but I love you. So anybody else want to chime in? And Chief, maybe you could give us your advice. You're out there, and any other council, and Mark can decide. We passed a resolution for him to figure this out. So Chief, Bridget, Fred's already talked, Dan, anybody?
The only thing I can say is that we haven't been on the river based on DNR and Beaufort County being out there. I haven't got the reports the past 2 weeks about the sandbars, so I can't speak to that. I can see both sides. I can see us both wanting to be cautious, and I can see the safety factor of loading and unloading the boat. At the end of the day, we're going to enforce whatever you guys direct us to do. But I can tell you that DNR has not reported huge issues. Not saying they're not there. I'm just saying that we haven't got those reports. So, and just so you know, we are putting in plans to get our people back on the river in May. So we'll have an additional boat out there probably within the next 2 weeks.
Do you have the power if that dock opens and you have 20 people out there fishing? What are you going to do? Cite them or tell them?
Well, I mean, of course, the executive order is still in place to enforce social distancing. So, yeah, that is a enforceable issue. And I think you could do exactly what Larry said if you deem necessary to use it as a loading and unloading and prevent the fishing and the gathering on the dock for other social purposes. But again, once you guys make that decision, we'll enforce accordingly.
Dan?
Yeah, question. I thought the executive order expired at the end of the month from the governor.
It does.
That
That's
is
true.
correct, unless it's extended. April 27th, I believe. I believe April 27th, unless it's extended. Now I can verify that date for you.
The reason I asked the question, from where I stand, I would say we see this thing through till that period of time to see what the governor recommends. If he goes beyond it, he may not. It expires, I think, every 15 days when he puts something in motion. And so I think today's the 23rd. Let it play out till the governor's executive order expires, and let's see where we are then.
Anything else? Okay, Mark.
I have some comments, but I didn't know if I was interrupting Councilwoman Frazier at all. I don't know if you were going to say anything about this. I want to jump in too soon.
Council, are y'all ready for Mark to respond? And then we'll move on to other
I'm ready for
comments.
Mark to respond.
Okay, so to clarify, and this is definitely one of the harder decisions I need to make, right? And I appreciate all of your support, and I appreciate your guidance and advice. The decision made some time ago by the governor to close the ramp and all public access to waterways subsequently closed ramps plus anything associated with them, whether that be a parking lot, a dock, a bathroom, whatnot. And so as Governor McMaster unwound that executive order, he didn't unwind it entirely. He said, I will open up ramps unless the local jurisdiction wants to do something different. Then a few days later, his next order came back and not just included ramps, but he added docks to it. And so the county, we're in an interesting situation here. As we all know, Oyster Factory Park was acquired through the Rural and Critical Lands Program along with Beaufort County and Town of Bluffton funds. We have, through an operating and management agreement with Beaufort County, and I'm reminding us all of this because it's been some years, but we have an operating agreement in place that has allowed us to manage and invest grant dollars and other dollars into this park and amazing facility. It is a county dock. Under an operating agreement, we have the authority. I've talked to Ashley Jacobs, county administrator, on this yesterday. By no means am I trying to make some decisions and not talk to her. At the end of the day, Calhoun Dock and Oyster Factory Dock is a county asset. We are trusted with managing their asset. And so I've compared some notes. According to Ashley, it's our call. It's definitely our call. And so if we want to close the ramp, we can close the ramp. If we want to close the dock, we can close the dock. And I confirmed all of that last night. I do think Oyster Company and Oyster Factory area is a little different than a lot of our docks, which is why I made the decision, to let you all know where my head's at, which is why I made the decision temporarily, knowing the governor's order will expire in a in several days. I'm simply made a decision to just leave it as is. I feel like, and with all due respect to what's going on everywhere, every day having something new open and close is not good for staff. It's not good for us to figure out what we're managing and engaging with. So I left the dock closed for a little bit, simply along the same lines what Mayor Salka shared, is that it's a gathering spot. Oyster Factory Park, with the Oyster Company, the seafood market, and everything we have going on down there, is everyone's favorite place to gather. And so what we're trying to do is not stretch our police resources so thin that they're constantly down there telling people politely, hey, you can't be that close. Hey, you can't be that close. And so over and over, I'm trying to not have our officers, one, use their time, let alone expose them. So I simply made the decision to leave things alone with the exception of the ramp. Councilman Toomer, Councilman Hamilton, I hear you. It's unsafe. I'm not a boater. I don't have a boat. We're not in the river every Saturday. I like boating. I respect the quality of life and the freedom that the river provides. I understand it all. I was simply trying to preserve our resources and not allow yet another mass gathering spot, and simply trying to get through and see where the governor is as his order expires in a few days. So it's a tough decision. I could either leave it alone or I could open it with only utilization by those folks getting on or getting off a boat for public safety and not allow gathering. It is a tough call. I feel strongly though, and I want to reiterate my sentiments. I feel strongly that I do not believe the governor's stay-at-home order of going to work and going to places of business that you need to thrive, and those businesses need us there to thrive. I don't believe that includes that order from the sheer nature of it. I don't believe that includes gathering on public spaces. And so, which is the decision I've made to leave it as is for a few more days. I respect that you are all policymakers and decision makers, and often we're never tasked with trying to figure out a pandemic on the go like this. So I don't necessarily know what the right decision is, and I appreciate all of your input. I would like you all to be unanimous in your position, but it doesn't seem like you are. And so I will think through it unless you all have some different thoughts before we end this meeting.
Mark, can I jump in? I want to be clear. I really wish the dock was still closed.
You mean the ramp?
The ramp. I think the ramp. I wish the ramp was still closed. And now that I know that it wasn't the county decision,
Well,
I feel like that's the only position I think that we took that I didn't agree with. Again, I thought it was a county decision to open it.
well, the ramp, sir, to help with that, the ramp several days ago, when the governor makes the decision late night and then we're trying to implement it the next morning, adjust and think through and read the order and compare notes with the county administrator. According to Ashley, she let it be known that because of, I thought I lost you on the internet for a second, because it is ours to operate under a true operating agreement, that authority is ours. Fred, several days ago, as they opened the ramp, that was the decision the county made. And I went along with it and abided by it. Learned a little more. And so I would say it is sometimes difficult when the governor has his order at a 4 o'clock or 4:30 conference call and things are in place the next day, especially as we compare notes with the county and try to understand the legality of the written order versus his press conference. That does take a day or so to unwind and digest something. I learned a little more since the ramp opened. So if you all collectively and unanimously want to close the ramp to complement the closed dock, I'd be happy to hear your comments on that as well.
Real quick, I mean, Dan's right. I mean, I would urge us all to just wait until April 27th and see what he says, and maybe we can discuss this in May. Or we can always meet, y'all. This is so easy to get a meeting together, is my thought. Now we know, he may open up the whole state. Who knows what he's gonna do, but.
Okay, I don't agree with the April 27th to see what the governor is doing if the decision is still a municipal or county to make,
Okay.
because we're still back to the same thing, trying to figure out what works for us, and I think we should have there are times when, and I hate being in this position, but there's times when we individually are not going to agree with the governor's decision, and I'm not afraid to speak truth to power. You know, if what's worked for us works for us. Okay.
I hear you.
And I respect that it's my decision to make. I appreciate all of your input.
Okay, let's see, Larry, anything else? Dan, do you have anything good for all of us?
Yeah, I do. And I'm going to end. I want to get this last word for myself in response to Fred. The reason for me personally to let this thing play out with the governor, we were all asked to stay at home, shelter in as reasonably as we could to keep people from collectively getting together in groups. And, in the dock, lots of people love to fish and so forth. And some of these governors that have been opening up the states prior to their original proclamations is a little bit confusing, I think. So that was one reason I'm like, let this thing play out for a few more days. It's originally what they intended to do to begin with. That being said, and when the chief for clarity talks about putting our boats back out there, my understanding is we do have enforcement authority because we have an MOU that we had signed a year ago with the sheriff's department, so we can do enforcement on the river. And my final comment, unrelated to that, is I just want to say a shout out to all of our local charities. There are many of them out there doing great things. We know a lot of the usual players. You got AME Church, you've got Bluffton Self Help. We've got Volunteers in Medicine. We've got Help for Heroes. There's a litany of list of great charities that are going to need our support more than ever at this time. And I want to also give a shout out to Bridget. I'm proud of what she's been accomplishing, and she's done a good job, and she's another one. So there's a lot of them out there doing a lot of good things. And I just want to encourage us and the public and everyone to continue to support those organizations.
Great.
So can I just say one more? So just want, or I would like very much so that you guys can see what I see and hear what I hear. If anybody's got any time this weekend, especially if it's a good sunny day, come down and visit for a little while and hear what the people are saying, or going to be saying, about not being able to walk on the dock. And if we need to make it where there's no groups, I'm all 100% fine with that. We can say no fishing, no crowding, no more than 6 people or 6 feet apart. I just think that it would be so much more sensible to allow that small part of it to be utilized by the people that are going in the river anyway. So, this is a public meeting, and I'm the one that's going to catch my ear is going to catch the unhappiness of all this and be questioned about why we are the only one in the county, with a closed floating dock at an open boat ramp. So I just want to make sure that all of our residents know that I think the floating dock should be able to be used by our people. And if
Thank
it's
you,
not,
Larry.
then it's fine.
Thanks.
Pardon
Larry.
me?
No, I just
Okay.
wanted to go through with the rest of council. I think Mark has taken all of our advice and he's going to make a decision on that. So
Okay.
Fred, anything else for the good?
No, thank you.
Hey, Bridget, anything in the community, anything you want to get out?
Absolutely. I know there are a lot of parents who messaged me about the superintendent's message yesterday. And school is still in session virtually, but yes, schools are closed for the remainder of the year, meaning that we will not be going back into the building. But students are definitely still receiving their instruction via virtual school. So any parents that have additional questions on obtaining packets or what the grading is going to be like, I would advise them to contact their school. Also, the Beaufort County School District page has a lot of information and details on there for that.
That's great. And maybe, Mark, can we get someone to get that out? Because I'm sure that's a little loophole. These students would love to see that, oh, school's closed. We don't have to study anymore.
We'll clarify that. And I see our deputy town manager, Scott Marshall, taking a note. So he'll make sure that that's a clear message and post it on Facebook today.
Jen, I'll end with me, and then if anyone has anything else, I had two things. I'd love from the chief if he could talk to us a little bit about any sightings or warnings or tickets, or what are we doing now that dress shops are open and other things. So after me, I'd love to hear what y'all are doing to these stores that are now opening. And I have asked Mark, and I'll ask Terry too, what can the town do with regards to masks for these employers? You know, you can you see most of them, and it's the same with the dock. 80% of our people are following every single rule there is. So it's just that percentage. But I think we should expect employers to wear masks, period. If it's a dress shop, they need to have a mask on. I mean, people aren't taking it seriously enough. And before you know it, we are going to get right back in this groove of no one wearing masks and no one washing their hands. So I would like on this to be known, I'm going to say it and shout it from the rooftops. I expect businesses, employees to wear masks, period. I expect that. And I think everyone on this Facebook feed, and when they hear it, if they go in and there's not if you're in a restaurant or if you're in a clothing store and they're not wearing a mask, you should ask them where their mask is. If they need masks, we can teach you how to make one. Or there are hundreds of people that have asked to deliver masks to us. And maybe, Chief, maybe there's a drop-off point for masks if people don't have one, and you know, they're homemade mask. Anyway, I'm off my soapbox on that. And if you could speak to what y'all are doing, I'd appreciate it.
Yes, ma'am. So once the order was lifted to open up the small retail businesses, officers were instructed to go ahead and start checking those on a regular basis, just like we were with the big box stores, to make sure they're in compliance of the 5 per 1,000 square feet or the 20% occupancy. One of the things we found the first day or so, and I think they're slowly opening back up, but a lot of businesses didn't open up immediately. We did see, you know, there were still a lot of closed doors, and some businesses had not opened back up. And we'll continue to monitor that. As far as the mask goes, you know, we actually have no authority to enforce that. We can encourage it, absolutely. Our staff, as far as a town, we have that policy in place, and I hope, and I would encourage all employers to do that, because again, it's just the safest thing we can be doing right now. And there are lots of resources out there, and more resources are coming online now than there were even 2 weeks ago. To acquire masks, either through private donations or to actually purchase. So those opportunities are actually out there. And I'll be glad to answer any other questions that anyone has regarding the situation at hand.
Any questions of Chief on that? I know I think Hilton had actually passed an ordinance. It's an urging ordinance to wear face mask. Is that something y'all are interested in? Just urging.
I'm interested, especially in the food and beverage industry. I mean, I think that's a responsibility that they should take on themselves to show their recipients that they are practicing practicing safe procedures, and I wouldn't want someone breathing on my food in this time. So, and I get a lot of complaints about it. So I think we should at least, if nothing else, strongly encourage the food and beverage industry to show us some kind of respect.
Mark, would we need to vote on that in some way? I mean, I think just do it overall, but shout out some of the more person-to-person kind of places, food and beverage, clothing stores.
Sure, I could take a look at Hilton Head's ordinance, compare some notes with Terry, and potentially put something on an agenda as a special meeting, or if you all wanted to wait until the May meeting, it's up to you. We can have another meeting like this in a few days to pass an ordinance.
It'd take 5 minutes.
Yeah, okay.
Y'all think about it. I don't see anybody shaking their head no.
Yeah, I would like to know more about it and how it's being implemented. And, you know, I, for one, I mean, we're all in a new world. And for example, my last haircut I gave myself, you know, because I didn't want somebody cutting my hair breathing all over me. And
Well,
a lot of us will end up voting with our pocketbooks. You know, that's going to be instrumental in how businesses open up and sell themselves, whether they're being, you know, studious with the public and trying to do some of the things that the mayor is just talking about. But I'd love to learn more about it.
Larry, okay, Bridget.
We will be happy to. We'll be happy to see what Hilton Head has done. I don't think we have the ability to mandate it, but as Fred mentioned a moment ago, strongly urge. We've issued some strongly urged proclamations within the last 6 weeks. We've learned how to do it. But I will coordinate with Chief and Mark and try to get something to council at some point late today, perhaps.
Right. Thank
And
you.
I was going to say, I'm not opposed to doing it. I would just want us to not just jump on the bandwagon because it's trending, and like making sure that if we're urging that, we're doing it like in a way that's going to be advantageous. Because they were saying if you're just getting a mask, but it doesn't have a particular filter, then it's kind of fruitless to just be walking around with the covering, because you potentially are still susceptible to, you know, to receiving it if someone does have it, for instance. So it becomes a matter of, are we going to be urging for them to just cover their faces, or urging them to actually have the mask with the filters that would alleviate them from catching it in the event they come into contact with someone.
Now, I will add to that, those type masks, the N95 masks, are still not coming online. Those are very difficult to get and being reserved primarily for first responders. So, you know, as we think through that, the cloth masks are becoming more available, the surgical style mask, those masks are becoming more available. But to Councilman Frazier's point about the N95 mask, those are very limited and being prioritized for first responders right now.
No, it's not just the N95. They were saying even the medical surgical ones are acceptable, or even ones with filters. I just know, like, I've seen people who will do them without the filters, and they're just, you know, playing masks. So I'm saying, if we're going to be encouraging people, are we actually encouraging them because we want them to remain safe, or we're just saying because everyone's doing masks, whether it's a mask that's going to prevent you from catching it, as long as you have something on your face is all we're concerned about. I'm just saying, I want whatever the message is, that we're actually putting it out that's going to be effective, and not just we're following along with whatever the trend is.
Absolutely understood. Thank you.
Let's look at DHEC. You know, if they're suggesting certain ones, maybe we follow that, Bridget, would that help? If DHEC says these are okay? Because I know they taught us how to make one.
Right.
But, okay. Do you have all that, Terry, Mark?
Do.
Good. Did I miss anybody? Anybody else have anything good for anybody?
Yes, Dan, can you turn your head to the left and to the right for me?
Ah,
Oh, good job, Dan.
did you donate it to the Pantene Care for Need?
There wasn't that much.
Well,
Mayor, if I could just, one additional comment, Mayor, if I may. The plan that you all passed today is a result of looking at every conceivable option, opportunity. Chris worked real hard on whether we could do a loan program. We've been looking at grant funds. Unfortunately, our hands are tied an awful lot on doing any type of loan program with federal or with private, with our dollars going to private individuals. We are prohibited from doing that. So please understand that we looked at and had, I think this is either our second or third Zoom conference before this on this whole stimulus plan. It's complicated, but I appreciate all the work that certainly that Chris and Mark did. Our office looked at a bunch of ordinances. I think what you've passed is a really good use of the Don Ryan Center. I think it will make it stronger, not only now, but probably off into the future. And Mike, I know you've been involved an awful lot, so I appreciate you and your expertise and your assets here. So I think you guys did a good job today. I just want to let you know we did a lot other than just this, what you saw today. Thank you.
no, thank you, Terry. And also, y'all stay in touch with our senator, one of our senators, Tom Davis. He was asked to be on the advisory task force for this governor's Accelerate SC. So with programs like that, Bridget, like you were wanting to help our businesses that were forced to close, let's all send our info to him, because I think he has the ears to the governor on what we think is important, maybe boots on the ground, thoughts. So I'm happy to forward that email he sent to me late yesterday to all of y'all. I'll send it to Mark and he can transmit it. So, okay, anything else? Is there a motion to adjourn this special meeting?
So moved.
We're done. Thank y'all. Be safe.